authorizing alcohol license for Harry Wine LLC. Ms. Dixon.
Yes, the chief of police and the city planner has no issues with this request.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Dickerson or the chief? Very good. Item number 2. Court has an item authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with the administrative director of courts. State of Alabama. Welcome, sir.
Thank you much, President, council members. This is the annual contract with the Administrative Office of Courts to perform court referral services in the court system here in Houston.
Standard renewal of
Yes, sir.
annual event here. Any questions for the gentleman on this item? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item number 3 is resolution rejecting a bid for Household Hazardous Service Day. Jason Franklin, newly appointed Director of Public Works. Mr. Franklin, welcome.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Good.
MXI was the sole bidder for this, event. They were they met all the specs and the bid guidelines, but we want to reject and authorize Mayor Cato to negotiate.
Mr. Franklin, this is not uncommon, right? Isn't there a small number of bidders that we usually hear on this?
Yes, sir. It's a specialty. There's not a lot of services that offer this.
I think this typically happens each year on this bid.
Yes, sir. They have, been our provider for the last 9 years.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Franklin? Or Mr. Reeves, he's here on this one. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Number 5, Ms. Wyatt, we're gonna take that item, I think, at our next meeting on the 14th. Number 6, Kelly Peoples is here for an agreement with the Jefferson County Commission. These people, I think we're accepting money, aren't we? These are easy.
Thank you. The city of Hoover recently hosted the Hartford Nationals, which is adaptive sports competition for athletes with disabilities. An event we'll also host here for 2024. The local organizing committee applied for a $10,000 grant for the event from the Jefferson County Commission, in which Commissioner Stevens recommended the funding at $10,000 for the city. So we will just use these funds to assist with the cost of hosting.
Very good. Any questions for Ms. Peoples? Thank you. We'll vote Monday and we'll deposit the check, hopefully. Item number 7, Ms. Bolt, if you'll come forward and talk to us about a couple of budget amendments, please.
Yes, council, these are 2 budget amendments that were on the 5-year capital plan that we presented a few months ago. The first one is fire station construction on the land that we purchased in the amount of $3 million, and the second is a remodel of the Lorna Road building that we purchased in the amount of $2 million. So a total of $5 million for these projects in the capital projects fund.
Any questions for Ms. Bolt on that item? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item number 8, Ms. Dickerson, is a resolution concurring with the appointment of a member of the Cahaba Solid Waste Disposal Authority.
That's great. The new appointment will be Blake Miller.
See Mr. Miller here. We'll welcome him if he's here Monday night. Any questions?
He will be here Monday night.
Good deal. We'll congratulate him on his new garbage man. Any questions on that item? Number 9 is a resolution declaring certain personal property as surplus and directing disposal. Mr. Moore, welcome.
Yes, sir, thank you. These are random vehicles that we have picked when we got replacement vehicles in. That we've slowly but surely been getting our Tahoes in and other vehicles in, and we've been going through and deciding the ones that we don't need and that are either A, high mileage or have maintenance issues. The rest of them are equipment and lawnmowers and 2 biodiesel machines and bleachers that are no longer needed.
Are those bleachers by chance the ones from the Hoover Met?
They are from the Finley Center.
Family Center.
So I guess, yes and no.
Yeah, probably not the outdoor ones that we use for football.
No, sir, that's right.
Okay. Any questions on any of the items you see before you?
Mr. Moore, how you doing?
And Bill, what?
Just want to clarify, all these vehicles right here, are they being scrapped, sold, or?
They'll be sold through auction.
All right, cool, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ms. Swiney, you have any questions? Item number 10 is a resolution authorizing certain persons to negotiate and settle third-party claims and workers' comp claims brought against the city. Mr. Gordon?
This is just an update of the resolution we've had in place for many years that allows our risk management department to work with the council and our insurer to resolve claims. And it's being updated because of our revised self-insured retention and employee changes.
Members can see in front of them the wording changes there in front of them. If you have any questions, I know Mr. Gordon would be happy to entertain that. Hearing none, item number 11 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement for special projects personnel. Mayor?
Yes, we are in the midst of.
Can you hear me? We are in the midst of renegotiating our contract with the SEC, and I've asked Mr. Pate to come back and work with us on that because he knows he built that building down there. It's gonna involve some construction, some things that we might need to move here or there to get us to that point and to get the SEC satisfied. So that is what that's for. And if that is what that is for, and maybe special projects, put that under special projects.
Members can see there the term of the agreement and the hourly rate compensation.
He, as a retired employee, cannot exceed the dollar amount set by the state of Alabama, which is that on there?
I think it's 36,000.
Yeah.
It's not on there, but I think that's the number I recall it being. Any questions for the mayor on that item? Very good. Item number 12 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a development agreement with Project Cloud. Mr. Knight.
Yes, sir. So tonight, we've been obviously having some conversations about Project Cloud, which has been the code name for a expansion by McCloud Software. I'm joined by General Counsel from McCloud Software, Mark Hughes, and their external counsel, Trey Hill, tonight. And very excited, as you know, since McCloud first selected Hoover for its new corporate headquarters in 2017, certainly with a public-private partnership from this body, the company and the city have continued a dialogue to encourage growth and create new jobs. As you recall, they set up their shop and opened in October of 2018, and we recently learned of a new expansion opportunity where McCloud, through an operating partner, a close operating partner of their Software Guys 2.0, would acquire and renovate the building. Would open the long empty 300 Middlebrooks building. I don't believe it's had a tenant in it since 2012, Mark, is that correct? So sitting empty, over 100,000 square feet in Middlebrooks Corporate Office Park. This project would bring a combination of remote and new workers into the building with an average annual salary of $73,000 a year. And the company will be investing $14 million in the facility. Which is significant investment in Hoover and significant investment in employment in our city. As part of that, there would also be great tax benefits that would come from that. Some $657,000 in property tax revenues for schools over a period of 10 years, which we always say economic development is very good for schools when the council considers abatements. In building fees alone, we estimate about $68 million. And over the course of 10 years, the city, a portion of estimated of the value of abated sales and property taxes would be about $377,000, and that would be in addition to what the county and the state would abate for that if council considers to move forward with this on Monday night. And certainly that comes with a positive staff recommendation. Any questions that I can answer for you, or that Mr. Hughes or Mr. Hill can answer for you?
Just a statement before we entertain questions, Mr. Knight, and this is the second iteration of what has become a great partnership with McLeod and the city.
Absolutely it is, and they are incredibly supportive of the city's vision. Our comp plan calls for a technology campus be developed out in Middlebrooks and along the 280 corridor. They're incredibly supportive of that, and you're absolutely correct. It's part of a long partnership since the city and McLeod began to partner back in 2017.
It's good to see us grow together. We're appreciative very much of the opportunity to be part of it. Mr. McClinton, Mr. Swiney, any questions for Mr. Knight or the gentleman?
I just have one, on top of the 150 remote positions that they're gonna move to this building, how many more additional jobs?
Well, do you mind if I let Mark talk a little bit about that, talk about some of the things that McLeod's been doing in the city, I think even today as we speak?
Thank you, Gary, Council Mayor. Yes, we certainly have plans to grow. We wouldn't be talk about investing this kind of money in a new facility if we didn't have plans to grow. 3 years ago, when the world fell apart, and so to speak, we're already talking about leasing space, and of course that changed, and since then we've continued to grow, and the only reason that we were able to continue to grow and stay in the facility we were in is that we had a good percentage of employees working remotely. Right now, we are 515 employees out of 660 that are, we consider domiciled here. But we only average about 300 a day in our current facility. And so, there's 215 number there that we can gradually start to move back into office, as many businesses are. But again, growth is part of our plan. We continue to be positioned well in the market. So that is our plan. Greg mentioned something going on today in our current building. Since we moved in 18, we have taken every square foot of extra space in that building that we could wrangle, and moved a couple of smaller tenants out to our neighbors in Middlebrooks to fill up those buildings. And the last one to move out opened up a space, 4,400 square foot space that we have now leased, and today opened what we call the McClinton Conference Center. We had a 3,000 square foot space, but we have gone through a significant upgrade in size and quality of that space, and today we have 70 visitors in the finance aspect of the trucking industry. We have a nationwide industry association coming in a week from today for another conference. We have the Women in Trucking Association 2 weeks after that. We have an internal event in between, and so we are very, very excited about that new space. Like I say, the paint is literally almost drying on the walls as we speak, and so very excited about opening that up to community, city, school. We've had all kinds of groups use our smaller space. We're very excited about opening that up to groups like Tech Birmingham and other industry tech groups, not only outside the park, but inside the park as well. So, it's an exciting time. We appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 13, weed and grass. Mr. Martin?
Good evening. I've got a couple of properties here that are in need of abatement. 1812 Strawberry Lane, 2405 Tyler Road, and 425 Shades Avenue. We will do one more check early on Monday to see if this weekend has brought about a miracle on any of these properties. If not, we'll continue on with the abatement request.
Very good. Any questions tonight for Mr. Martin? Mr. Martin, you also have the next item for the demolition of the unsafe building at 3416 Cedar Crest.
Yes, sir. This one was on the council agenda sometime back, for abatement. There was a deck that was about to fall off of the back of this particular building. And on the evening of that, abatement hearing, I happened to stop by and see that there were some repairs made. But before we completely took this off the docket, I wanted to check with the building department to see if those repairs were made with a permit from the city. And after communicating with the building department, found out that no permit was sought or issued for that work. So it was not inspected. Therefore, very difficult for us to ascertain that it was built in a safe manner. So we're bringing this back up for an abatement.
Okay, so at least certain, will the deck be all we're removing?
The deck is the most concerning part. However, there is a spot on the back of the townhome where it looks like the base of the foundation has been eroded. That is definitely something that we need to take a closer look at as well.
So I guess to be clear, Mr. Corey, are we voting to remove the entire structure or to do further observations? I mean, if we vote in the affirmative on this, are we authorizing a track hoe to be out there the next day to tear it all down?
Yes, to proceed with demolition.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing we're not sure if we need to do that.
The deck is surely the issue, the main issue. As far as the residence itself, it's a bit tricky because we are talking about a townhome unit, with shared walls with the adjacent unit. So the deck, I'm certain, is a problem. I think the townhome itself warrants further investigation.
I think it's the last time this came up, I shared with our colleagues, in my 10 years, I can only remember one time we've done this, and we did it at the request of the homeowner. Remember that?
I do.
They needed it to be declared for insurance purposes.
That's right, the home was separated from Shay's Mountain.
Correct. So this is a unique one, so I encourage my colleagues to ask plenty of questions over the weekend before Monday night, because this is a rather uncommon occurrence.
Mr. President, let me clarify too, that this doesn't require us to demolish the whole structure, but that it allows us to abate the nuisance. So if it's just the deck, or and they find other structural issues, they can do that, but it doesn't limit us in that way.
Mr. Martin, does it have units on either side?
This is an end cap unit.
Okay. A little better.
So it's a little better, but
Okay.
it is attached on one side.
Any other questions, Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin, so what's the recommendation of the building inspector?
Let's see, we have any building inspections now. The deck was in very bad shape. And it looks like there has been some foundation work done on the deck itself. New piles installed, but, again, those were not inspected. There was no permit issued on those.
But where I'm leading with this is I'm on the side of Mr. Lyda right here, that I'd hate to create a precedent going forward. If we can save as much as we can, it'd be great, but, yeah, I'll have some more questions this weekend.
Sure thing.
Thanks.
Is it occupied, Mr. Martin?
Not that I can tell.
Very good. Swiney, you have anything? Thanks, Mr. Martin. Next item is a resolution supporting certain action by the Alabama legislature. Chief Curt, it's got your name beside it, but I can speak to it. I think we're all aware of the last press conference where the chief and Attorney General Steve Marshall stated a need for perhaps the legislature to look into expanding the law as it pertains to filing false police reports and filing false incidents. And before the members is a resolution asking the legislature to consider looking at that. In fact, I can read it. It says, I encourage Alabama legislature to amend Alabama Code 13410-9 and Alabama Code 13A11-11 to allow for the false reporting of a felony crime to carry with it the charge of a Class C felony. So certainly, all we can do is ask, but this is in support of our chief and the Attorney General's wishes. And any questions about this one? Very good. Chief, anything to add?
No, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir. We'll vote on that Monday night. Item 16 is a resolution declaring weed grass abatement. Mac.
Yes, sir. Here we have 5 properties that have been considered nuisances by our staff, and we're coming forward a declaration of nuisance for each of these. Again, as with the abatement cases, we'll take another look Monday and make sure that none of these have been self-abated before coming back to you.
Good. Any questions, Mr. Martin? Thank you, sir. Stay with us for the next few, if you don't mind, sir. Ordinance 23-2604, annexation of 8167, Onika Drive.
Yes, sir. This is, I believe, a second reading for this particular annexation. It is a piece of unincorporated property adjacent to Trace Crossings. It's actually between Abington by the river and the Cahaba River sector of Trace Crossings.
Mr. Martin, I pulled this up on Google Earth trying to look at that. That's not where their clubhouse is it?
No, sir, it is next door to the clubhouse. The clubhouse is immediately to the left if you're looking at the exhibit.
Okay, and so what's proposed, or who owns this property now?
The Nunnallys own the property, Nunnally family. The proposed use is a single family residence, long term.
Okay.
And that is really all the access to the property will support.
In access, if you could back down to the map, please, ma'am. How do you access the property?
The access will actually be through a narrow strip of property that was donated to the city for the linear park along the Cahaba River. And there was a negotiated access when we took on that property, if memory serves me correctly.
And then looking at that to the east, none of that's in the city of Hoover, right?
That's correct. The east property boundary of this site is the Cahaba River. And so what we're looking at in the rest of the vanilla color there outside of our city limits is
Across the river.
Across the river.
Yeah, very good. Any questions for Mr. Martin on that one? The next one is also an annexation at 1523 Highland Gate Point.
Yes, sir. This is a little remnant piece of this particular tract that was not included in a previous annexation. And this particular annexation request is to clean up that issue. So this small subject piece of property on the parent tract of 1523 Highland Gate is what they are requesting to bring in the city.
I looked at this one on Google Earth too, and it's hard to tell, does it go with the parcel that faces the street there, Mr. Martin, or how do you access it?
This actually goes with the parcel where the home 1523 is located. There's a tract immediately to the east that is owned by the homeowners association. It's used as part of that private drive.
Okay, that makes sense now. Any questions for Mr. Martin on that one? All right, the next one is item number 19, annexation for 2440 Southwood Trace.
All right, this comes to you, an annexation request of a single-family home on Southwood Trace. This particular tract is adjacent to our current city limits on the back end of Russell Woods.
The neighborhood to the west of it is not accessible from Russell Woods, right? It's a totally separate neighborhood
That's correct.
in unincorporated county.
both of these streets, or all three of the streets coming off of, the Spine Road in that subdivision are cul-de-sacs.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Martin? And finally, Mr. Martin, 2821 Sterling Way. Oh, I'm sorry, let me say one more thing. Mr. Alden, like I mentioned, I thought the map was wrong on there. It's right. I was looking at it incorrectly, so disregard that.
We already discussed it. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Finally, 2821 Sterling Way.
Yes, sir, this is an additional single-family home on Sterling Way. It's on a cul-de-sac, where about half of the properties are in the city limits, half remain out. This would extend our city limits along the north side of Sterling Way to the end of the cul-de-sac.
Questions on that? I'm out here, Mr. Martin, make sure I'm seeing this one right. These are a little unique in that while they're not quote unquote totally surrounded, in essence they are, because they're inside there what you and I would consider a Hoover neighborhood, so I just want to call my colleagues' attention to that. As Mr. Martin said, this is the end of a cul-de-sac into what we would consider a Hoover neighborhood. The neighborhood to the south and west of here is not.
That's correct. Yeah, whatever services, the unincorporated properties on this street are, taking advantage of have to come through the city of Hoover to service them as it is. And we currently provide service already to the end of this cul-de-sac, so we're not extending our services.
Right, so this is in essence cleaning up the maps.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for Mr. Martin? All right, and then we'll talk about item number 21, annexation of 249 and 250 South Burbank Drive.
Yes, sir. These two properties are requesting annexation, and this would close off one of the existing holes in our city limits. The annexation comes with a condition that not more than 4 single-family residential units could be located across the entire 9+ acres.
This one came up like a year or so ago, right? They were through and now they're back.
Yes, sir, there was a little bit of angst on the part of the applicant to, or a hesitancy to want to annex all of it, and that has since been remedied.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for working through on that. To the members, you'll notice that this is an item for immediate consideration. We did have, Madam Clerk, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had a first reading on this initially.
That's correct, we did. And then exhibit 2, we talked about the exhibit, it was in there, but it wasn't labeled as on the ordinance as exhibit 2.
Okay, so the only change, members, so we're aware for Monday night, is the exhibit had to be corrected in the ordinance. That's now been corrected, so there's really no major material change, but we will ask for immediate consideration as there is a student on this property, Mr. Swiney, that needs to go to Hoover School. So unless we go on it Monday night, they will not be allowed in. All right, any other questions on that? Continuing the Mac Martin Show with number 22, abatement of weeds. First readings.
Yes, sir. First time around, hopefully we won't have to be back for a second, but we're getting to the point of the season where the ones that are going to be cut by themselves are being cut, and those that aren't are seeing their way through.
And then item number 23, ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance.
Yes, sir. One of the things that we have been examining in the Planning and Zoning Office is how we go about issuing notice for changes, amendments to planned unit developments. There are instances where development criteria for the whole planned unit development is being changed, or there's a substantial change taking place to a large portion of the planned unit development. But then there are also times where an amendment comes forward really addressing a zoning change for one property within a planned unit development. or other changes that would impact a small portion of a planned unit development. And as council knows, we do have some planned unit developments that are very large in size, River Chase, Trace Crossings, Ross Bridge, and others. So, in essence, what we are asking for, proposing, is that when we have a change or amendment to a planned unit development that impacts a PUD that is 10 years old or older, and where the change impacts one property or less than 20% of the land area, that we would use our notification process similar to how we do for other rezonings. In other words, we alert and notify folks within 500 feet of the subject property. Right now, regardless of the scale of the amendment or change that's taking place with a planned unit development, we are notifying all property owners within the planned unit development and 500 feet outside of the bounds of the planned unit development. And so if you're having changes in a PUD like River Chase or Trace Crossings, that can get very extensive, and the alterations may not be actually impacting that many people. So the request is, again, if you have a PUD that has been established for 10 or more years, and the change that is set to take place only deals with a single tract or less than 20% of the PUD area, that we would notify property owners within 500 feet of that specific property or area that's being changed.
And that gets us more in line with our standard notifications, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's correct. So for instance, I know we've had some singular tracts that have been rezoned in places like Trace Crossings. Right now, any change in a zoning designation on any piece of property within that PUD necessitates a need to notify all property owners within the entire PUD. And it gets to be a large project, that's for sure. But we feel like with this adjustment, we're still notifying people that could be potentially impacted, as we would for any other rezoning case.
Thank you for explaining that. If you don't mind, I will ask you to explain that again Monday night. You can see we're lacking a few.
No problem.
I anticipate they'll be here Monday night, so for the first reading, if you would entertain us by, let's talk through that with you.
Sure thing.
Okay, no problem. All right, I think that brings us to our last item, or that is our last. Yeah, that's it. All right, any general questions from the members tonight? Thank you all for your attendance. Adjourned.